afternoon.
Good afternoon. Are you the owner of this establishment?
I am indeed. How can I be of assistance?
My wits end. Been to every guest house and hotel in Whitby looking for a place to stay, and they're all booked up. Came on the train from Nottingham this morning for a spot of sea fishing, expecting to find accommodation without any problem. Now I find myself with a horrid prospect of having to sleep on a park bench.
Well, I'm afraid to tell you, sir, this guest house is also booked up. It's August bank holiday, and really you were very unwise to travel without first securing a booking. I'm sorry, but you can't stay here.
But a weather-worn gentleman I've just met on the seafront has told me in confidence that the proprietor of the old man's guest house, Mrs. Critchlow, would definitely be able to put me up.
Well, I don't know where that gentleman obtained that knowledge, but I'm afraid he's misinformed you.
I assure you he did not, madam. He's a native of this town, and he told me that you always keep one particular room free.
Well, I don't think that room would be suitable for you.
So you do have a room?
Perhaps.
What do you mean by perhaps?
Well, the room in question is called the Chinese room, and I'm very reluctant to let it out after recent happenings.
What recent happenings?
Oh, I don't like to talk about it. No, I'm sorry. You can't stay here.
Look, I'm desperate for a place to stay. I'm not in the least put off by recent happenings. I served as an officer in the Sherwood Foresters in the Great War and saw all sorts of horrible things. I'd be damned if anything would worry me. Be frank with me, what are these recent happenings?
Well, if you must know, several people who have stayed in the room recently have said that it's haunted. They've said that they've heard disturbing noises in the night, and they've seen the ghost of a young woman.
Haunted? Surely you don't believe in that mumbo-jumbo. I don't believe in ghosts whatsoever. I believe there's a rational explanation for everything. Maybe they heard plumbing noises, or they'd had too much to drink. Maybe they'd eaten something that didn't agree with them. Some kinds of mushrooms, I believe, can make people hallucinate.
With the greatest respect, sir, I don't think it was the mushrooms. No, they were very sound individuals and very convincing in the telling of what they'd seen and heard.
Listen, we've seen what living human beings can do to each other. I'm more scared of the living than the dead. I'd sooner take my chances in the Chinese room than sleep rough in this town on a Saturday night. Please be a dear and give me the keys to the room.
Well, if you say so, but don't say that I didn't warn you. Would you mind signing the visitor? Captain Torkington, is it?
Yes, I'm still on the Army Reserve list. Is it all right if I stay for 3 nights?
There's no problem with that. I do hope you have a good stay in the town, and I look forward to attending to you in the morning. I'll take you to your room.
Thank you very much. After you. Certainly did not. It was the woman in the room next to mine walking around with a wailing child all night. Didn't get a wink of sleep. I'm most annoyed. Why didn't she give the child some concoction like laudanum to send it to sleep?
There is no woman staying in the hotel at the moment. Are you sure you heard a woman's voice?
Of course I am. It was clearly a woman's voice.
But the only person in the room next to yours is occupied by Mr. Frankham. Look, here, in the register.
I see. Is he the kind of gentleman who entertains ladies late at night in his room? I know these sort of sordid things go on at seaside resorts.
Well, I very much doubt it. He's a retired headmaster in his 80s. And I will ask him if he had a visitor late last night, but he's been coming here for the past 20 years, And he's always been a model guest. And he knows that I don't have visitors in the room after 10 o'clock at night.
No, don't bother. I know from my war experience it's very difficult to pinpoint the exact place a noise comes from. It could have come from the building next door.
If you say so.
By the way, I'm going into town to hire a boat and some fishing tackle. So I won't be back till late, so I won't be here for the evening meal.
Would you like me to put some sandwiches in your room?
Oh, that would be very kind of you. Could I have them with a glass of milk?
There's no problem with that. Would you like cheese and pickle or would you like ham and mustard ones?
Cheese and pickle will suffice.
Very well. Well, do have a good day's sea fishing, Captain.
Yes, I hope the weather stays fine. See you in the morning.
Captain Torkington. Oh, you do look like you've had a bad night.
A terrible night would be more apt, Mrs. Critchlow. I would not have believed it if I'd not seen it with my own eyes. I was woken in the middle of the night by the sound of a woman sobbing. And there in my hotel door was a woman holding a little child in her arms. And it was horrible. And then she started walking to the end of my bed. She was like beseeching me to do something. It was awful. And there was an incongruous smell of lily of the valley in the air.
So, you think that you've seen the ghost that the previous guests in the room have seen?
I believe I did, and she looked strangely familiar. She had a sickly pallor and a distraught countenance, but she reminded me of a beautiful young girl I used to walk out with during the war.
Walk out with?
Yes, during my training in Wiltshire. One day I went into a tea shop in Warminster and I met a lovely young lady, and we started courting. We became very close and we were making plans for the future. Ironically, I actually said to her that I would take her to the Yorkshire coast for a holiday. However, I was posted to France, and although I wrote many letters over several months, they were not answered. I was puzzled. It's perhaps that the letters were mislaid. I was moved from camp to camp, but eventually I feared the worst. I thought that she'd found another young gentleman, so I concentrated on surviving that bloody war.
You were sceptical when I said there was a ghost in that room, but now you think that you've seen her.
Very much so. Why does she own that particular room?
I don't like talking about it. It's a very distressing story.
I implore you to tell me, Mrs. Critchlow. I need to know.
It was the spring of 1918. A very respectable young woman, calling herself Elizabeth Smith, asked if she could stay here. She said that she'd come from Warminster and that she wanted some seaside air to clear her mind. And she'd heard from a friend that the coastal paths of Whitby were very good for that.
Go on.
Well, I could see that she wasn't quite like to engage during conversation. And she got very upset. And she told me that her 2-year-old son Jimmy had fallen ill with the Spanish influenza and had died a month before. And as you know, Captain Torkington, so many people died of that terrible plague. More than had died in the Great War, so the papers say, including my John. You were right as rain on the Monday, by Friday, gone. So she said that she wanted to find solace and to come to terms with her loss. And I felt sorry for her, so I comforted her and I gave her the best room in the hotel.
The Chinese room?
Yes, the Chinese room. So she took her bags to her room and I remember the smell of her perfume, lily of the valley. the next time I saw her. Oh, it was horrible. Horrible. I'll never forget that terrible sight that morning when I went to clean the room. She'd hanged herself from the bathroom door with a leather belt. I can still have nightmares about it to this day. No one should have to see a sight like that.
Did she leave a letter, a suicide note?
Yes, she did. I gave it to the police and they gave it to the coroner. It said that she'd met a young officer in Warminster, had a relationship with him and she'd become pregnant by him. And he'd been posted abroad, and after many attempts to get in touch with him, contact him, she'd had no reply. The stigma of bringing up an illegitimate child had made life very difficult for her. And although she loved the boy immensely, she was heartbroken when the Spanish flu took him. And so she said that she couldn't live with the grief anymore, and she asked God for his forgiveness and said she was going to take her own life.
Did she have a diamond-shaped mole on her neck about that?
Yes, she did.
I think I knew who she was. Her real name was Elizabeth Redmond, but everyone knew her as Bessie.
Captain Torkington, you're right. The coroner's office, they said that she'd given a false name. And suicides often do that, I've since found out. So, with respect, say you knew her. You were the officer, aren't you? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
War is a terrible thing, Mrs. Critchlow, and it's not just the soldiers who suffer the consequences of it. And I've received those letters from Bessie. Things could have been so much different. Ignorance is indeed bliss. I came up from Nottingham on Saturday not knowing I was a father. And I'll go away mourning a dead son for the rest of my life.
I'm so sorry. It must be a terrible shock for you.
Slings and arrows. Slings and arrows. Mrs. Critchlow. Where is Bessie buried?
And after a search, the police found her relatives and her remains were taken to Warminster, where she was buried with her son.
I must go up to my room straight away and pack my bags.
I can see why you wouldn't want to spend another night in that room.
It's not just that, I need to go on a journey.
A journey?
Yes, I need to go to Whitby railway station and find out the times to Warminster straight away, so I can go down there and pay my last respects to Bessie and Jimmy. It's the least I can do.
You're a good man, Captain Torkington. My thoughts will be with you on your sad journey.
It will be a sad journey, but a necessary one. If there's not a headstone on their graves already, I'll arrange for one to be erected. Hopefully, by my regular visits to their last resting place, the haunting of the Chinese room in your guest house will cease. I sincerely hope so.
I sincerely hope so. God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you for your kindness, Mrs. Critchlow.